I'm going to try to do this short, quick, and sweet. Now, most people are going to tell you, if you rent, by default, you're paying someone else's mortgage, and it's just better than buying a house altogether. No matter what, if you don't buy a house, you're done. It's a poor choice. It's the poorest choice in the world versus rent. Let's see about this for a second. It depends. It depends on your situation. But my moral of this story for this video is not always. See, even Grant Cardone will tell you to never buy a house, and he's a millionaire. So, you know what I mean? I mean, what does he know, right? He owns all these properties, and he's telling y'all not to buy a house. So, I mean, that's what he says. He says only an idiot buys a house. I'm going to post that link on the bottom, too. That's Grant Cardone, a millionaire who owns all kind of real estate, telling you only an idiot buys a house. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to sound rude or anything, but that's what he said. That's what he said. It doesn't matter if you're buying a house. If the house is not paying you back, or you're not making money off the house, should I say, it's the same thing as rent. The only difference is you could possibly sell it in the end, right? That's where it's different, and that's what people's argument is. Well, if I sell this house in the end, I didn't really lose any money. But they don't calculate how much money they put into that house by the time they actually sell the house. Did you really gain any money? Or did you lose money? Or did you break out even? If you broke out even, good for you. But still, all you did was own a house, right? And then you broke out even, and now you basically have the money that you put into the house. As to where when you rent, you don't get none of that money back, right? But the thing is this. When you buy a house, you're stuck in the house. You can't go nowhere. When you buy the house, you're probably not going to be able to get as ahead as far in life as you could if you rent it. Now, if you have a family, then you're probably better off doing that. If you buy yourself, I don't see it. I've even had people who buy houses tell me, if you buy yourself, you ain't got no family, don't buy a house. And the only way I would buy a house is if it's super cheap to where I could buy and not own it, or if I buy it and I can make money off of it. That's the only way I'm buying property. If I can't make no money off of it, or if it's not going to save me from paying rent, then I'm not doing it. But even though you don't get your money back in rent, it could help you get ahead in life way further than paying a mortgage sometimes. And I know some people are going to say, well, the mortgage is cheaper than rent. It is to a certain extent. But if your furnace goes out, there's my whole rent right there. Your $10,000 furnace is basically my rent for the most part. Maybe a little bit less. Oh, well. The point is, you had one incident at your home and you had to pay on that, and that was the whole thing of rent. So how, again, is it cheaper? It's not. The only benefit to buying a house is the money that you put in it, you might get back if, that's the key word, if you sell it. If you sell it. And a lot of people are still talking about raising credit and this or that. I don't understand why people are so caught up on credit like that, but if you're not making money off of credit, it's a liability just like a house. If you're not making money off of credit or owning a home, it's a liability. Plain and simple. A lot of y'all think getting credit is some way to get over in life or some shit. But if you aren't doing it to make money, meaning if you're not using credit to try to do something to make money, then you're just fooling yourself. You're just borrowing money that you're going to owe more back for. And that's the fact. That's why I don't give a damn about no fucking credit score, none of that. That's not my main focus. Can't say I don't care because you want to have a good credit score, but that's not my main focus. If I was to get something on credit, it would be to make money. That's it. Not to buy things, not to buy a house, none of that bullshit. Because I'm going to owe that shit back, and I'm going to owe back more, plain and simple. But if I have cash to where I could buy these things, I won't owe nothing else on it at all. But then people will say, well, I used the credit to buy the house, and now I sold the house. And it's like, they don't do the math on it. Yeah, you use credit to get the house or the business or something, and you sold it, and for some reason they think they made out. I can see if you bought a house for, let's just say $5,000 and you made $25,000. I can see that. But translation, you bought a house for $100,000 and you made like $1 million off of it or something. But that's so rare, man. A lot of times you just breaking out even, and a lot of times you breaking out in the red for real, for real. So really, you're paying rent. Even if you're buying a house, technically you're paying rent until you find a way to make that house pay you money or give you a profit. Until then, you're paying rent too. You're paying rent too. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that it's wrong. It's just to let people know that it's not a big difference like people are making it seem. If you want to buy a house, try to make money off that house. That's the moral of the story. Don't just buy a house just to live in it. Unless you have family and shit and you have no choice. But if you do have a choice, especially for people who may only have one kid or don't have any kids, don't be just so quick to jump the gun and buy a house, unless you could buy a house to where you could pay like more than half of it off or some shit. Because you want to be able to move. You want to be able to be free. You don't want to be bound up in a house for 30 years, you know what I mean? Because you know, it felt better to say you own something instead of renting something. You know, rent might actually turn out to be cheaper than buying a house at the end of the day. And that's the point. Rent might be cheaper than buying a house at the end of the day. Add up what you paid for 30 years for your house and then add up somebody's rent. A lot of times you break it out cheaper. We still paying. We both paying. The only difference is if you can sell that house, you know what I mean? You can get your money back or most of your money back. That's it. But to me, if I'm going to buy a house, I want to make money off of it. Plain and simple. If I'm not making money, it's a liability, in my opinion. And that came from Grant Cardone, too. He even said that shit. A lot of people complain about buying houses in a bad position and shit like that. You know, the bank convinced us that buying a house is the best thing no matter what. And that's not the truth. Sometimes it's just not the best thing to do. You know, and I'm not saying rent is the best thing either, because it's really not. But if you can get by, or say renting helped you save $1 million or something, now you can buy your business or whatever you're doing. Let's just say that versus buying a house that prohibited you or stopped you from being able to put yourself in that position. Explain to me again how buying a house is better. Because a lot of people who chose to buy a house is behind in life or struggling in life because they chose to buy a house. And they bit the rent is automatically worse by default. Apple. You know what I'm saying? But hey, man, let me know what y'all think about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know all the answers. I'm still learning just like the next person. You know, I feel like whatever's best for you. I feel like whatever's best for you. But at the end of the day, just don't believe the fact that, you know, when you rent, you're throwing away money. How am I throwing away money when I say I mean anybody, by renting, if it's helping you get ahead in life way further than buying a house would? How's that throwing away money? Just wondering. If somebody told you, if you pay this much for this much, and it's going to help you be able to have this much in 5 or 10 years, but if you do this and buy this, it's going to stop you. I mean, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to take the easier route. I'm going to take the more beneficial route, should I say. And you always got to pay property tax too. Even though some people might, it's only $800 and this and that. It's always something. You know what I mean? But, you know, renting is good in a way, and buying a house is good in a way. It all depends on you. But the moral is, don't listen to what people are saying. Go by what's best for you. Really research and do your research on, is it really best for me to do that? Or should I wait? Because according to like Donald Trump and them, most people like most people would say buy a car, don't rent a car or lease a car, right? But according to Donald Trump and them, they say don't buy a car, lease a car. Leasing is the same thing as renting. So are they wrong? Is Grant Cardone wrong because he said rent a house instead of buying one? We're talking about a millionaire right here. Why'd he say that? And we're talking about somebody who owns property, right? So why is he saying that? There has to be a reason behind it. And then look at a lot of people you know who are struggling because they chose to buy a house. Not saying they wouldn't be struggling if they rented. I'm not saying that. But they would be free. They wouldn't have all the obligations. Everything that happens with that house is on you. If that fucking ceiling starts leaking and shit, that's on you, and it ain't gonna be cheap. So all this house saves me money type shit, does it really? Because a lot of people are buying houses that people are trying to make a profit off of. In other words, those houses are kind of like worn down or have problems, and you're just inheriting them problems, man. It's not like you're buying a brand new house, which I would prefer. I prefer to have mine built. You know, instead of buying a used house that somebody's trying to make some profit off of, which is why they're selling it in the first place 9 times out of 10. People don't sell houses just to, you know, sell houses. They sell houses to make profit off of it, which means they got it for cheaper and they did some shit to it, you know. But that don't mean it don't have problems. That don't mean it's not perfect. They're going to try to get by as cheap as possible with selling that house that they're trying to sell to you. But if I rent, hey, I'm free. Whenever the lease is gone, I'm gone. I gave you a certain amount of money to have a place to stay, plain and simple. That's it at the end of the day. But everybody who owns a house is trying to convince y'all by default that it's cheaper than rent. By default, that's not always true. It might actually cost you more money. That's all I'm gonna say about it, man. On to the next. Like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what y'all think about this shit. Because, I mean, both ways are good and beneficial. It just depends on who you are. But to me personally, if I'm not making money off of the fucking house, or if I don't have a family, then I'm not going to do it. Why would I? Why? If the house ain't going to be something that's going to make me some money, or I don't have a family to where it would be better off to buy the house instead of renting 9 times out of 10, because that's not even always true. I could probably find a house to rent cheaper than buying it. Who knows? But that's it, man. Y'all have a good one.